One day, the most powerful monarch of all suddenly appeared in an extremely strange space. A voice mentioned to him at that very moment that his new life had to begin and that he had to advance directly toward the light. Upon doing so, he notices that there are two people in front of him. He wonders where he is, and we discover that his name is Arthur. He questions who those people are, although at that moment they inform him that they are his mother and his father. His father is named Reynolds, and his mother is named Alice, making Arthur understand that he has just been reborn. After countless victories as a king, he has become a helpless baby, unable to control himself perfectly. His mother takes care of changing his diaper, and he feels frustrated, as if he were under a physical limitation. Shortly after, on any given day, he witnesses his father performing a magical technique. Although after suffering a fall, his mother runs to heal him. This world is full of powers that he does not know, something that seems fascinating to him. Over time, his father assumes the responsibility of eliminating the monsters in the area. At that moment, Arthur dedicates himself to examining everything around him. Realizing that in this world society is allowed to use weapons, he thinks that this could be something dangerous, since it means he must obtain a weapon as quickly as possible. Although, despite being in a physical form that requires care, he does not dislike the idea of being able to rest calmly, since in his old world, he was unable to do so because he was a very powerful king and had to take care of many matters. Thus, several months pass until he finally learns to crawl. Even after several months, he still cannot get used to his new name, but when he learns to control his body, he begins to escape from his mother, who thought he was sleeping. Without drawing attention, he sneaks into their room, where he becomes interested in books. He ends up looking for all possible information about that world, where we discover that the continent on which he was born is called Dicathan. In this world, there are three kingdoms: the kingdom of Darv, which is a subterranean nation of dwarves, the kingdom of Sapin, which is the kingdom of humans where he currently resides, and the last kingdom is the kingdom of Elenwar, where the elves live. The kingdom of Sapin is the most populated of all and is full of humans. It is very similar to his old world and is a monarchical nation, although unlike his world, in that place the throne is inherited, and compared to his previous life, that place is barely developed. When he takes a book, he understands that the reason is because magic exists in this world. Its source of power is something called mana, and the ability to control it is mainly hereditary. Although it manifests in 1 out of every 100 people, for magic, there are also two explanations of mana, which are augmentation and conjuration. Conjurers can project their mana and control it at will, while augmenters, as the name suggests, use their mana to enhance their physical abilities. But when he remembers that his mother can use healing magic, he imagines that there must be some exceptions. The key to controlling mana is the mana core. Most users discover their powers during puberty by concentrating dense mana throughout their body, and this ends up creating a mana core that, once mastered, turns them into mages. Although he had never heard of mana, he knows a similar concept, since in his old world there existed something called Kai, which allowed him to be aware of his internal power, control it, and then release it. Thus, he tries to use the experience of his old world to channel his ki, and he is able to feel the flow of mana. But at that moment, he is interrupted by his mother. She observes him with strangeness and asks if he has perhaps done mischief. Arthur thinks that he did not do that, although shortly after he feels humiliated because he was so concentrated reading that he ended up completely soiling himself without realizing it. Shortly after, his mother is seen writing because, although her son is the most adorable thing in the world, he is also someone very curious, and the detail is that they have never heard him laugh. Soon, 2 years pass. She looks out the window and sees Reynolds training his son. She quickly goes out to scold him because he has barely learned to walk and he is already teaching him how to use a sword. The child is only 2 years old, and he finally understands who dominates that marriage, coming to think that maybe that world is somewhat matriarchal. Sometime later, upon going to the city, he finds himself somewhat excited because by observing the quality and development of weapons, he understands the level of technology. In addition to discovering substances that did not exist in his previous life, he is astonished to be able to observe magic personally. Upon returning home and having his diaper changed, he thinks that although this new life is very suffocating, it is not unpleasant since his parents take care of all his needs, questioning whether that is how all families should be, something he cannot assure because in his previous life, he was in an orphanage. While he falls asleep in his mother's arms, she says that she feels very happy and that it is very good to be able to observe how he strives to read books and see his excitement every time he goes to the city. Perhaps he inherited this from his father, and when he grows up, he will want to explore the world, although she would prefer that he lived a quieter and more serene life. With the days, he observes his father training, and his father is an augmenter. Upon seeing how fabulous he is, he thinks that he has no time to lose, and now his mother takes him to take a nap. On the way, he makes some gestures, showing what he wants to read. His mother refuses since now it is time to sleep, but after he begs and uses a tender look, she tries to resist but cannot, and therefore ends up yielding to his requests. Upon opening the book, he begins to practice what he has been doing for 2 years on how to produce a mana core, assuming the responsibility of gathering the countless fragments of mana scattered throughout his body, focusing them on a single point. And this task requires a considerable effort, but it is bearing fruit. When he finally manages to make his mana circulate, the big explosion explosion ends up occurring. Reynolds jumps to protect his wife, although when they turn around they worry about the fact. Upon entering the house and looking for him, they are surprised to see that he has not even turned 3 years old and has already developed his mana core. Meanwhile, he is satisfied because his long years of study have given results. Well, it was only 2 years, but there it is. But at that moment the debris was about to fall on top of him. Without losing time, his parents jump to the rescue. His mother, crying, rejoices that he is fine, and Arthur wonders why she is crying, since they simply fulfilled their duty. Therefore, they should feel proud. And this is a feeling that he is currently unable to understand. It is something that cannot be learned from books, and that he never learned in his past life. He ends up thanking them and fainting. Then, in a change of scene, we see a strange cave and a very peculiar creature that is there. Sometime later, we discover that the name of Arthur in his past life was Gray. At one point, an emissary was captured, and he planned to attempt an attack against the king. This is a serious offense that is punished with immediate execution. However, the council was very merciful, and he was deported with his family back to his country, where a sentence awaited them. The desperate man accepts his guilt. He tried to attack the king, but his family has nothing to do with it, and for that reason he begs desperately not to involve his wife and children, because returning to his country would be a suffering worse than death. He asks Gray to please forgive them and punish only him. However, the council warns that his sentence has already been decreed, but Gray, understanding that the return to his country would cause them greater suffering, as an act of mercy decides to end the family of the man, because dying is a better destiny than returning to his country. Gray did not have many options either, since despite being king, those who truly controlled everything were those of the council, while he was nothing more than the figure of an imposing warrior. The man, with tears in his eyes for having lost his family before him, thanks Gray for having released them from a worse destiny. After all, we return to the current world, where Reynolds tells his son that now he can be like his father, and then hands him his gauntlets. But Arthur lets them go, since he does not have the size to use them, since he would probably be at a disadvantage, even before approaching his enemy. Quickly they begin their training, where Arthur demonstrates great skills, but seeing that his father imbues magic into his sword, or rather, into the piece of wood, he does the same. Reynolds ends up surprised, and after destroying the staff, he asks him how he did it. In a change of scene, we see his father commenting to his wife that Arthur definitely needs a true master, but she refuses since they had agreed that he would train him. Reynolds informs that that is what he wanted, but Arthur possesses a very great talent, and he would gain much more with a true mentor. Alice continues to refuse because she cannot allow her beloved Arthur to go to a distant city, but Reynolds explains that he is only 4 years old, and he has already managed to pierce something coated in mana, so no alternatives remain but to begin discussing the future of their son. Since emotions sometimes cloud judgment, Arthur proposes that it would be better if everyone goes together. Upon hearing this proposal, his parents understand that they were naive and quickly prepare to pack their bags. They were really thinking about leaving the child alone at 4 years of age when it was better to go all together. Fortunately, the child is intelligent, so time passed and Arthur meets the old group of his parents, the Twin Horns. The red-haired man tells Arthur that they already knew each other, although certainly he does not remember it since he was very young. But in fact, Arthur does remember them, and we discover that the redhead is named Adam, the girl is named Jasmine, the person who is hugging him is named Angela, and the big guy is named Durden. The leader of all of them is Helen, and thus the young people begin their journey, where Arthur considers that method of transport quite primitive, being very different from that of his past life. Currently, our group is heading toward a city called Xyrus, although while they are resting, Arthur and the others feel the presence of monsters. A pack of wolves attacks the group, and Jasmine quickly gets rid of some of them. The Twin Horns work exceptionally well in team, while Angela and Durden, who are conjurers, attack from a distance. Jasmine and Helen, who are augmenters, improve their physical capacities. Once everyone finishes with the monsters, when night falls they eat their meat. Although Alice notices that Reynolds is injured, she prepares to heal his wounds, but the group establishes a perimeter, since Alice is a special type of mage called an emitter with healing powers, and because they are quite rare, mages do not usually heal people out of nowhere, since that would make them a target. This is one of the reasons why Alice and Reynolds lived in the countryside in anonymity. After finishing eating, Adam asks Reynolds if he could take Arthur to practice a little. Then we see everyone excited waiting for the fight, although it seems they forgot that Arthur is only 4 years old. He, seeing that Adam does not have the intention of restraining himself easily, surprises him with his great skills, but since he is still very small, his body does not help, and for that reason Adam sends him flying. Angela takes care of stopping him, and afterward they scold Adam for not knowing how to restrain himself, but he simply apologizes, since Arthur is a little prodigy, so there is no way to contain oneself. While everyone scolds poor Adam, Jasmine approaches Arthur to ask him how he did that. Arthur observes her, thinking that he recognizes that look, a look that shows that that person does not think about giving up until getting what she wants. Thus he goes and explains it to her. Thus a few days pass, and the journey continues without any mishap, and during their stops they take advantage of the time to train Arthur. He learned many new things, and by sharing knowledge from his previous life, there was also something revealing for him. Jasmine seems to have taken quite a liking to him, but when everything progressed relatively well, something unexpected happened. Jasmine gives Arthur a knife as a birthday gift, while the others think it is very strange that Jasmine attaches herself to someone. Although, when they were about to continue their journey, Arthur noticed that his mother was acting in a very strange way, but with little to say they continued their journey. Upon arriving at a rocky area, they are intercepted by a group of bandits. They are completely surrounded, while Arthur thinks that in this way it seems that everyone in the world is a bad person. The leader of the bandits orders the attack, but warns them not to attack the woman and the children, since they could sell them for a higher price. Quickly, the Twin Horns group initiates the counterattack. Individually, they have the advantage, but they are overwhelmed by numbers in an overwhelming way. Union makes strength, and they begin to wear down the bandits. Reynolds ends up injured, but quickly gets up and warns Alice and Arthur not to approach, because they would have serious problems if those bandits discovered the power of Alice. They ask Arthur to take his mother from that place, although Arthur responds that he can also fight, since they must know that he is also strong. But Reynolds responds that he must use that strength to protect her, revealing that his mother is pregnant. Upon hearing this, Arthur understands why his mother had been acting so strangely. Realizing that he will be an older brother, he understands that he must protect his mother and his future brother or sister, something that will be known later. Quickly, Alice and Arthur flee, and the bandits run after them, but Reynolds stops them. Jasmine and Adam make sure to protect them, while Arthur thinks that someone like him is fleeing, someone who had nothing and now is running so they do not take away what he has, thinking that maybe this is karma. But in any case, he must protect his mother. Shortly after, a conjurer ends up appearing and introduces himself. Without hesitating, Arthur pushes his mother to distance her from danger, but he ends up falling. However, he does not have the intention of dying without taking that man with him, so he holds him with his dagger to bring him to his end. Durden and Angela try to stop him, but unfortunately they cannot reach him. Meanwhile, Arthur, in his mind, can only think that maybe he would not have achieved anything in this new life. But despite that, he feels that his heart is full, and now he can understand what that man had lost. He can feel a feeling of joy and sadness together. When the moment to choose arrives, there is only one thing to do. The only thing he regrets is that he would have loved to be an older brother. But we see that Arthur is there as if nothing had happened. Lying on the ground, they question that fact. Although at that moment, a strange and huge creature appears before him. It says good morning, calling him by his name, and Arthur finds himself perplexed before this creature, once again questioning what that thing is doing in that place, although the most important thing now is to know if it is his friend or his enemy. He jumps quickly, although the colossal creature only gives him a slap, at the same time that it warns him that he still has a lot to learn, and tells him that it will be by his side, while Arthur asks what it refers to. At that moment, the creature gets up, while it picks a fruit and comments that he must be hungry, and even if he is not hungry, he needs to eat, and Arthur is astonished, while the monster says that for now he must not move, since he is very lucky to have survived that fall. Arthur then begins to cry and tries to ask questions, but the monster informs him that he will not get answers until he begins to eat. He, without losing time, immediately begins to devour the fruits, and the creature comments that yes, he was hungry, while Arthur, somewhat worried, asks about his father and his mother. It responds that it cannot leave that place, but it can see much further than many people can and reach many things that others cannot, and using a kind of strange magic shows that his family is alive and that a few days ago they continued their journey. Arthur cries with emotion upon discovering that his family is fine. He can feel a deep relief and gives thanks, although he does not know how to name the creature. The creature responds that he can call it Sylvia, and in a change of scene we see two strange silhouettes commenting on what the Lord should do. The other responds that he should already know the answer, and the youngest responds that he will not be able to keep any secret, and thus the scene ends, leaving everything open and us without knowing anything. It is then when we see Arthur, who spent several days with Sylvia, and when his wounds healed, he wished to return to his home as quickly as possible, but understood that this would not happen quickly, since according to Sylvia, they are in a forest called Elshire. This is a place full of outlaws and wild animals. Although Sylvia has a trick to avoid them, she can understand his desire to return to his home as quickly as possible, but creating a rift in space requires an extensive preparation, and it is then when we discover that her plan is basically to create a rift in space-time, with the purpose of opening a portal that brings him as close as possible to his family. During this wait, Arthur took advantage of the time to train. He comments that Sylvia never talks about herself, and due to her monstrous appearance, little Arthur had screamed in fear on more than one occasion. Although despite that appearance, her personality was quite warm and kind, at a certain moment Arthur decided to meditate, and Sylvia is surprised to see that the little one already has a manicore, demonstrating it. He asks if she could do that, although this ended up surprising Arthur, since he sees how she is using magic and gathering it at the same time, something similar to refueling a plane in mid-flight. This makes him realize that humans have many preconceived ideas about mana, and only think about accumulating it and using it. Although beyond humans, this is something very natural, especially for creatures called mana beasts. This is something as simple as breathing, and she asks him if he would like to learn it. Arthur obviously says yes, and Sylvia asks what he thinks about doing with the knowledge he will acquire, because when he obtains this ability, he will be even more powerful. She wishes to know what he will do with this strength, and Arthur, reflecting on everything he has suffered, affirms that he will face anyone who wishes to take away what matters most to him. Sylvia then gives him another another slap and asks him to respond correctly. She does not think about teaching this ability to someone with such a cold look, and Arthur asks why not, since after all, it is normal to end enemies. Sylvia asks if by chance he likes to fill his head with ideas about ending his enemies, believing that certainly she hit him very hard and asking if he is okay. He responds yes, so Sylvia places one of her fingers on his forehead, mentioning that she could destroy him in seconds. Although she could also caress him gently, she asks Arthur which one he prefers, and obviously he is not so foolish as to say that he wants the former. Sylvia then responds that she also wants to caress him. After all, anger and hatred burn easily and express themselves through violence. At the moment it may seem good, but in the end, hatred is the only thing that remains, and for that reason she does not want him to use the life she saved for something like that. Arthur understands and remembers everything he went through in his past life. At that moment, Arthur can feel how that being seemed to know everything about him, but that should not be the case. Sylvia then asks him again what he thinks about doing when he becomes stronger. After reflecting with a much calmer mind and remembering those good moments, Arthur responds that he will use this power to protect those who are dear to him. Sylvia is delighted with this answer. Although on the other hand, we see how another strange creature mentions that she must be very close, and that there is no place where Sylvia can hide from him. At that moment, Arthur has a dream about his past life, where upon leaving his room he met one of his advisors. He knew that his title of king was nothing more than a title, since he had no real authority because all politics was in the hands of the parliament, and as resources were depleted and birth rates decreased, the role of a king was to act as an enforcer of war, little more than a combat machine. At that moment, the advisor asks what brings him to that place, although he simply walks away announcing his retirement. In his room, we see how he destroyed his crown. Now, returning to the present, Sylvia teaches him how to gather and use magic. Once he is able to do it, his magical capacities will expand considerably. While he tries to control this magic, he remembers how in his previous life, the only thing he desired to defeat any opponent was the control of it. Now in this new world, he managed to quickly learn the ability that Sylvia taught him. However, upon feeling a strange presence, Sylvia hides him behind a pile of rocks and asks him not to make any noise, covering him with her magic. Before Sylvia, the previous creature, presents itself, she responds that she is quite impressed that he managed to find her. Although the other creature responds that it was thanks to the smell of her blood, it orders her to go with him. But Sylvia refuses, and he, seeing that he has no choice left but to use force, resorts to it. Sylvia manages to protect herself with difficulty, but Arthur feels very frustrated upon seeing that he cannot help her. She warns him telepathically that he must not worry, then destroys her armor, revealing her true appearance, leaving Arthur surprised to see that she is a dragon. But that was obvious, given the armor she was wearing. Anyway, Sylvia gathers energy, unleashes a powerful lightning bolt, and attacks the other creature. But it simply responds that it is absurd, since that type of power will cost her dearly, although to her it does not matter, because supposedly she was happy. However, the other monster uses a massive amount of dark energy and repeatedly attacks Sylvia. She is more worried about Arthur than about her own battle, and in this way ends up giving the monster enough time to charge another powerful attack. But Sylvia uses her ability Freezing Time, extending Arthur time and her own. He asks to go with her, and she warns that she used her power. But now the most important thing is whether she now looks more like Sylvia without the armor, and in fact, now without the armor, she does look more like Sylvia. Arthur, surprised, asks if she was always a dragon, and she responds that that is how humans call them. But now there is no time to talk, so she opens a rift in space so that Arthur can approach his family, although she regrets it, since the exit is not as close as she expected. But she is sure that he will be fine, because she taught him what is necessary to survive. Before Arthur leaves, she asks him once more about his purpose, and he responds that his power is to protect his loved ones. She then declares that this is a promise, and then hands an egg to Arthur, along with a feather, warning him that he must wrap the egg with this feather and take very good care of it. In addition to that, she grants him a power. Arthur asks what all that is, but Sylvia responds that he will know it at the right moment. Cobbled that, it is time for them to say goodbye. Although Arthur regrets having to separate from her, Sylvia confesses that in reality she could have sent him home immediately, but she decided not to do it since she appreciated his company. Arthur feels sad because he could not protect her, despite the fact that she taught him so many things, although she lets him know that this result had already been foreseen. In his mind, Arthur, somewhat sad, questions whether the gratitude he felt for Sylvia made him feel this way, or if it was the time they spent together that had changed him. For him, it does not matter if she is a dragon or a monster. He considers her part of his family. Although she responds that he already has a mother, but Arthur then tells her that she is his grandmother. Sylvia is moved by his words and asks him if he could call her like that again. Arthur pleases her, while Sylvia, crying, gives him thanks. After that, she encourages him to move forward. Arthur takes the egg and wraps it with the feather. But while he crosses the portal, he notices that he cannot do it alone and asks her to go with him. This is a sad farewell, and once Arthur manages to depart, she unfreezes time and receives the attack head-on, ending her life. But the other creature approaches her, commenting that this could not have ended someone like her. Sylvia quickly takes advantage of this and attacks him, burning fiercely and causing a great explosion. After that, we see both silhouettes once more, where one asks if that was enough, and and the other responds that it was more than enough, and now the rest depends solely on her. And here we still do not understand anything. But anyway, while Arthur passes through the portal, Sylvia speaks to him mentally, warning him that everything will be fine. Although she can understand that he feels sad, the world is full of pain, and for that reason they must turn that pain into faith. Arthur feels unable to do it, but she warns him that, step by step, he will be able to achieve it. She knows that he will succeed. After all, he is the most powerful and strongest king of all, causing Arthur to be surprised. Upon discovering that Sylvia knew about his past life, and for the last time, she asks him not to let his heart fill with hatred and anger, and hopes that he lets his new life fill with light, calling him King Grey, leading him to question if it was she who caused him to be reborn in that world. After that, Arthur appears in a forest. He thinks about fulfilling his promise to Sylvia. Suddenly, Arthur hears a scream, and, without hesitating, uses his magic to move quickly through the forest. Without losing much time, he quickly detects a caravan of slave traders where there is a young captive elf. This is a very valuable booty since female elves are sold for a high price. Arthur, remembering the incident he lived with his family before leaving, does not think about allowing anyone else to suffer the same fate. Although he remembers the words of Sylvia, for that reason, he tries to control his negative emotions. Instead of attacking recklessly, he decides to follow them, waiting until dusk. As the sun sets, the slave traders stop to rest. In the process, he thinks that following them could be beneficial, since they could guide him to a human settlement. The detail is that those vile bandits intend to amuse themselves with the girl before selling her, and Arthur cannot allow that. But for now, he prefers to prepare and wait for the perfect moment. Once night falls, he observes the wolves, questioning why they are so obedient. Upon examining them more closely, he notices that they possess magical collars, but he uses the wolves, calling their attention to cause a disturbance. He manages to distract the bandits, who need to go to calm them so as not to attract magical beasts. Arthur takes advantage of one of them separating from the rest to finish with him. Thus, he takes his knife. One of them, seeing that his companion is taking too long, goes to look for him. Arthur takes advantage of the moment to get rid of the second bandit. At that moment, another arrives, and Arthur attacks him instantly. The detail is that his body is very small, so fighting is very exhausting. This third man, instead of killing him, only leaves him incapacitated. The leader of the slave traders, seeing that it is a child who causes problems, is surprised, but he gets excited upon seeing that a small child is capable of using magic. He already thinks about the money he will obtain by selling him. The bandit is a conjurer who attacks Arthur. He manages to dodge and then attacks him with his sharp dagger, but the bandit blocks him and kicks him. While Arthur is on the ground, he ends up being lifted since the bandit wants to see the quality of his new product. But Arthur takes advantage of a moment to use his magic and burn the man leg. That only provokes the man fury, and he decides to kill him. However, Arthur quickly stabs him in the head, and the other asks for forgiveness. But Arthur responds that she very probably also asked for forgiveness, and they did not listen to her. Then, shortly after that, he meets with her and removes the blindfold from her eyes. She cannot see his face and wonders what is happening. Although when everything returns to normal, he tells the little girl that she is no longer in danger. Then, he takes care of covering the bodies so that the girl does not see them. She tells him that he is also a child and, out of curiosity, asks him what happened to the people who kidnapped her. Arthur, trying to hide what he has just done, responds that they suffered a carriage accident and that she should not think about it, since what matters now is that she is safe. A little later, he equips himself with the objects that the bandits had. Although before leaving, the girl takes his hand and makes an expression of supplication, as saying to please not abandon her because she is afraid. Arthur responds that he needs to return to his family and that she will no longer be in any danger because those people will no longer pursue her anymore. However, she continues looking at him with the same tender eyes. Inside, he wonders how he could abandon such a kind girl in the middle of the forest. Arthur, a bit confused, asks in which direction they kidnapped her. She points, and he thinks that it is in the opposite direction to the one he is going. He asks her if she knows how far her home is, but she responds that when they captured her, she was hunting insects, so she does not know it. He cannot believe it, although he thinks so that children are usually like that, and shortly after he remembers when he was a child and feels that he cannot leave her to her fate, so he tells her that he will take her home. The wolves then begin to flee, and Arthur thinks that he should end them without making them suffer, since he cannot control them. The girl suggests releasing them, because if they leave them there, they will die, but Arthur is not very sure of that, since they could attack him. But she lets him know that the people of the forest value all forms of life, and after releasing them, the wolves leave. The next day, they advance for a few hours until they decide to rest. When Arthur asks her name, she responds that her name is Tessia, and Arthur presents himself before her, then gives her something to eat, since she needs to recover her energy, because a long walk still awaits them. And then he feels that the words he pronounced sound very similar to those of Sylvia. Tessia then tastes the soup, and it is terrible since Arthur has always considered food simply a means of nutrition, so he does not care much about the taste. When it comes to behaving like a child, he should learn a little more from Tessia. She, somewhat curious, asks what he is doing in the Elshire forest. He responds that he's separated from his family and asks her how things are in the land of the elves. She says that everything is very fun, although since her parents are always very busy, she spends most of the time with her grandfather and her caretaker takers. Thus, they continue moving forward, and it is a very long journey, but on the way, she starts playing with the small things that are there and asks Arthur if he wants one, but he says no. Even so, Tessia does not care and puts one on his ear, saying that it looks like he has an earring, while Arthur wonders if that is how children play nowadays. As they continue moving forward, she tells him that when her mana awakens, she will train in the house of her master. Arthur asks if she will simply find a master out of nowhere, and if there is no more organized education. Tessia cannot understand, and Arthur asks her to forget it. While they continue moving forward, they realize that they are being followed. At dusk, he notices that it is that horned wolf from before, and thinks that he should have killed them, but he asks Tessia to rest while he stays on guard, although later Tessia asks him if he is sure that he does not want to sleep. Her grandfather had told her that she should not sleep with any man, but she promises not to tell anyone if he sleeps with her. Arthur responds that she does not need to worry since he is not tired, and Tessia goes back into the tent, although quickly she comes out once more, telling Arthur that he should enter the tent because if they see him, they will only see a child outside, and that could get them into trouble. Although in reality, Tessia is only afraid, and Arthur asks her if she fears ghosts, and she apologizes, saying that she is only thinking about safety, and that if he is going to watch, it is better that he does it from inside the tent. Without more options, Arthur enters it, and Tessia warns him that he must not dare to go out without telling her first. In addition, he has to stay there, because when she wants to go to the bathroom, he has to accompany her. Arthur responds yes, and tells her to go to sleep once and for all, but she keeps talking without stopping. She asks if he comes from the human kingdom, and if it is true that humans are pigs who have many wives. Arthur asks who told her, and Tessia responds that it was her grandfather. Arthur explains that certainly there are elves who are also not kind, although the most important thing is that she knows that that is something very delicate to say. Tessia responds that in reality she does not know the truth, but in the end, she falls asleep. Meanwhile, Arthur feels that he has her like a younger sister, and thus the night passes, and the next day they continue their journey. Tessia enjoys Arthur's company very much, although this bothers him quite a bit. He was very worried about his family and did not want to delay in reuniting with them. During their journey, something unexpected happened. Arthur began to feel an unbearable pain that emanated from his mana core. Tessia, worried, goes to look for some medicinal herbs, while Arthur goes to rest a little, but his pain does not improve and it becomes more and more frequent. Suddenly, one of the horned wolves appears in front of him. Arthur, in a state of alert, asks Tessia not to approach. The horned wolf only leaves meat for him and then moves away. Tessia lets him know that the wolf is returning a favor, so that tonight the little ones can finally eat something tasty. While they eat, Tessia shows some mushrooms, and they are quite nutritious, although after eating them, poor Arthur ends up with severe diarrhea. She apologizes to him because they could have been too strong for humans, and after that, the young people go to sleep. Tessia talks a lot, but poor Arthur starts to feel sleepy, so she covers him with a blanket, and the next day, while they advance, he tries to hide his pain, while she apologizes for everything that happened because of her fault. Arthur responds that there is nothing to worry about after all, they are already very close. In that moment, Tessia mentions that now that she knows him quite well, what does he think about her calling him diarrhea, as if they were friends? And he responds that she can do that if she wishes. After all, for a humble villager like him, accompanying Lady Tessia is an honor he does not deserve. She says that those jokes are for older people, and he mocks her, saying that she is talking like a crybaby since she does not even want to go to the bathroom without him. She, irritated, keeps moving forward, although suddenly they stumble upon the strange portal. Tessia, excited, tells Arthur that they have finally arrived and extends her hand so they can enter together. Once inside, Arthur is surprised and frightened upon realizing that he is surrounded by a group of elves. They approach quickly, and Arthur turns immediately toward Tessia, but upon seeing her expression, he feels that he let himself be convinced too quickly by her words. Elves and humans have been enemies for a long time, and he let himself be convinced by the innocence of that small girl. When Tessia hears that the soldiers are about to execute Arthur, she orders them to stop, since it was he who saved her life. But the soldiers intend to execute him anyway because they believe that he simply manipulated the princess to enter elf territory. Fortunately, Virion arrives at the place and orders them to release the boy, and tells his granddaughter that seeing a human together with the missing princess, it is quite natural that the soldiers would have reacted in that way. It is then when he presents himself before Arthur as the ancient king of Elenoir. His name is Virion, and he thanks Arthur for saving his granddaughter. Arthur is surprised to discover the origin of Tessia, since he never imagined that he would be traveling together with a princess. Arthur cannot believe it, since he was unable to feel any indication that she was of royalty. At that moment, her parents arrive at the place, worried about her. Upon seeing them, Arthur understands that they are the royalty of Elenoir. The king, upon seeing him, asks the soldiers why they did not capture that human, but Virion informs his son that he gave orders not to detain him, because despite being a barbarian, it was he who rescued the princess. She tells her parents that it was Arthur who saved her, therefore now they are in debt with him. She proposes to invite him to their castle and asks Arthur to accompany her, since she will ask her chef to prepare his favorite dishes. Right after, she looks at her parents with a threatening look, and they allow everything without any objection. Virion warns Arthur that they will speak later, while Tessia takes Arthur by the hand. He thinks that he can feel a strange power emanating from Virion, Virion. Shortly after, while they walk through the city, Arthur is observed with suspicion by all the inhabitants. He is quite surprised, impressed by the infrastructure of the city. According to what he read in books, humans remain in conflict with elves due to past wars, and it is incredible that he can witness the elven city from so close. Tessia also seems quite peculiar to him, although he still cannot understand why she had that expression at that moment, nor the pain he is feeling now. He is determined to not lower his guard once again. Upon arriving at the castle, Tessia presents Arthur before her servants, ordering them to offer the best hospitality to the one who saved her life, while she wonders what they should do first. However, Arthur interrupts her, proposing first to speak about what they have lived so far. In a change of scene where everyone is gathered at the table, Tessia asks him why he remains standing and orders him to sit. The soldiers take care of seating him and then ask for snacks, while Arthur wonders if all this is correct. At that moment, the king of Elenoir presents himself as Alduin, and his wife also presents herself. Her name is Marial, and Arthur then presents his respects, introducing himself with his full name, affirming that he was born in a poor village in the kingdom of Sapin. And as is evident, he could not present himself formally before human royalty, much less before elven royalty, and therefore he is very grateful for having this opportunity. Alduin responds that for someone born in poverty, he is quite well educated. However, Arthur thinks that although it was a quite exaggerated introduction, he will gain nothing if they continue treating him like a child. Next, he begins to explain everything that happened, although upon relating his encounter with Tessia, Alduin gets irritated, sure that the responsible ones were those barbarian humans. Arthur responds very respectfully that a slave trader is an occupation, not a matter of race. Virion asks how he managed to rescue Tessia, despite being only a child. He responds that despite being a child, he is also a mage. Although the elves are unable to believe that a simple child defeated a slave trader, one of the soldiers accuses him of deceiving the princess to infiltrate their lands, but Virion orders the soldier to sheath his sword again and to not think about repeating that a third time. The soldier, containing himself, decides to remain in silence. Tessia warns that her friend is not deceiving anyone. She was really kidnapped. Upon remembering that moment, her mother hugs her to comfort her, while Alduin informs Arthur that now he believes him. Arthur tells him that, as he already explained before, he was also attacked by bandits and was trapped in that place. He only desired to return to Sapin to reunite with his family. Alduin asks him if as a reward he desires to return to his land, saying that he knows very well that elves despise humans, wondering how he dares to ask him to pay a favor to a human. But Arthur responds that that is precisely why he did it, since if elves believe that humans are barbarians, the fact that he behaves in the exactly opposite way is a very hard blow for them. Alduin ends up feeling the impact, while Virion lets him know that he has left him without words. Tessia intervenes on behalf of Arthur and begins to look at her father with disapproval, and that ends up calming him a little. He informs Arthur that the problem lies in the fact that the teleportation gate to the kingdom of Sapin can only be used once every 7 years after a meeting with the leaders of the 3 tribes, and 3 years still remain for the gate to open again. Arthur feels very frustrated because that is too much time, but Alduin informs him that it is also too much time to retain a human, and therefore he will make his soldiers escort him back to his home. Arthur feels relieved, but suddenly he feels extreme pain and Virion notices it. Shortly after, while Arthur is in his quarters taking a bath, he can feel that the pain is becoming more and more unbearable, wondering what it could be. When he goes out to breathe some fresh air, he thinks that he must do something to find the cause of this pain. Although at that moment he notices that Tessia is gathered with her parents, he ends up remembering the moments he spent with his own parents, and it is safe to say that they will not die so easily. He trusts that they are still alive, but he also wonders if they will receive him with a smile, just as Tessia parents did with her. At that moment, she notices the presence of Arthur, and shortly after approaches him. Arthur asks her if he interrupted her spoiled princess moment. She apologizes to him because her family was very rude to him. Arthur reassures her, after all, her family only showed great concern for her, and for that reason recommends that she continue playing the role of a spoiled princess. She responds that it will be the same with him when he returns to his parents. However, upon seeing Arthur's reaction, she asks him what is passing through his mind. He responds that he truly wonders if his parents will be genuinely happy to reunite with him. To begin with, they were attacked because of his fault. He caused those problems, and therefore he wonders if they will miss him. In the background, he feels frustrated because he could not protect his family. Tessia scolds him, saying that obviously his parents will miss him, and that she herself already misses him just thinking about him going home. Out of nowhere, the hallway lights up completely thanks to the fireflies. Arthur imagines his parents in them. He questions what he saw on that occasion. Tessia is quite delighted with the flowers, while Arthur understands that it was a foolishness to imagine that, since it was simply him fighting against his dark past, and apologizes to Tessia, commenting that he also likes that flower. But he feels a presence and quickly attacks it. It turns out to be Virion. Arthur, worried, asks if he was trying to harm his own granddaughter. Virion responds, asking if he truly believes that he could kill her just with that. Arthur, seeing what is in his hand, feels deceived, while Virion congratulates him because he blocked and counterattacked instantly, and that helped him believe even more that his words were true and that he really defeated the slave traders. Tessia asks her grandfather to stop bothering him, since Arthur is not like the humans he hates. But Virion informs her that he was not there simply to bother them. He is there because he finally found someone interesting after a long time. He throws a wooden sword to Arthur and then pushes Tessia out of the way because he wishes to test the boy's skills. Arthur can feel that the old man is extremely fast and very strong. His attacks fail to reach him, so he tries to increase his speed even more. But Virion ends up destroying his wooden sword. One of the fragments heads toward Tessia, but Arthur deflects it quickly and then gathers magic, advancing toward Virion, but he blocks him easily, making Arthur remember the fangs and claws of wild beasts fighting only by instinct. Virion sends him flying through the air, but Arthur counterattacks quickly, hitting him on the forehead. Virion cannot believe that he was hit, therefore declares that it is time for the second round. At that moment, his granddaughter pinches him and tells him to stop bothering Arthur. Virion responds that in fact it is Arthur who is taking advantage of him. Arthur then responds to Virion that it is an honor to have someone like him overestimating him. Upon hearing this, Virion responds that if what he says is true, then he hopes that he becomes his disciple, and asks him what he thinks of the offer. Arthur responds that he has not had the opportunity to inform his parents that he is safe. Virion responds that there is a way for him to inform his parents of his whereabouts. Arthur is surprised to hear that, but suddenly he feels an unbearable pain again, and upon seeing it, Virion comments that it is as he imagined. Arthur inherited the beast will, so he recommends that he become his disciple, otherwise he will perish. We see now Arthur, who is suffering a lot from all the pain he is enduring. At that moment, a monster appears before him, and he wonders if this is a manifestation of his anxiety or a manifestation of his responsibility, but upon hearing his name several times, he wakes up and finds Tessia on top of him. He responds that she is bothering him, calling her the monster of his dreams, and asks for 5 more minutes to keep sleeping. Tessia, irritated, orders him to get up because her grandfather is waiting. Upon waking up, she asks him if it is true that he will stay with them, but Arthur responds that he does not know yet, since first he needs to inform his parents that he is fine, but when he calls her princess, Tessia gets upset, since she had told him to call her Tessia. Meanwhile, we see the king insisting that his father should not allow Arthur to remain in that kingdom, since that goes against tradition. But Virion informs him that if he desires that child to stay, it is because he has taken a liking to him. That is his only reason. At that moment, Tessia tells her father that Arthur saved her, but her father orders her to remain in silence. Virion then says that he has already had enough and takes them with him. On the way, Arthur asks how long it will take to reach that mysterious friend. Virion is taking Arthur to one of his acquaintances, and this acquaintance is capable of communicating with his parents. On the way, Tessia falls asleep, and Virion informs Arthur that she woke up very early because she is very interested in knowing what the future holds for her. He reveals that as the sole heir to the throne, Tessia was raised in a lonely environment from childhood to adulthood. Her trust was betrayed many times, which is the reason why she maintains her distance from people. But he noticed that she is always by Arthur's side and smiles a lot thanks to that and feels grateful. Arthur only observes and thinks that even this old man thanks a child when necessary and feels that he can truly trust that man. A few hours later, they finally arrive at their destination, while Arthur wonders who this mysterious person could be, who is a friend of Virion. Suddenly, Virion begins to kick the door, calling his mysterious friend Old Witch. She opens the door already irritated and presents herself as Rinia. She is a very special mage, and Arthur also presents himself before her, while she invites them to come in. Once inside, he wonders how she is going to help him. Arthur tells Rinia that Virion said she had a very special friend, but Rinia says that he is deceiving the boy, since she informs Arthur that she is basically a fortune teller. She can feel that he is quite special, since not even she can see all parts of him. But going straight to the point, she asks him if he desires to communicate with his parents and tell them that he is fine. Arthur confirms yes, and she asks him to simply observe that cube of water. He concentrates and thinks of his parents, and she uses magic while warning him that he must describe them with the greatest amount of details possible. Once he is able to see them, he will be able to speak with them. Arthur concentrates and more details begin to appear. We see then that they are about to have lunch, somewhat sad since that day is their son's birthday, and they can only think of that horrible incident. Reynolds still blames himself since he asked his son to protect his mother, and if he had not asked that, Arthur would probably still be alive, since they believe that Arthur died in that fall. Then they arrived at the city where they were received by one of Reynolds' friends, where he began to work. While they mourn the loss of their son, Arthur suddenly speaks to them, leaving them perplexed. He informs them that he is fine and still alive, in addition to being in the land of the elves, the kingdom of Elenoir. Now he can speak with them thanks to a special mage, and asks them for forgiveness, because although he made an agreement to return to his parents as soon as possible, he cannot do it now, since there is something wrong with his body and he needs to recover. He asks his parents not to worry, since he will return as soon as he gets better. They have their faith renewed and feel relieved to know that their son is alive. Arthur tells them to not blame themselves, and says that he does not know if he will be able to contact them again, but tells them to not worry, saying that he loves them. Upon losing the connection, he can only think that he feels relieved that his parents are fine, and he does not intend to make them suffer more. He asks Virion to make him his disciple disciple. And sometime later we see Tessia telling her father that Arthur saved her twice, and that if they expel him now, people will think that elves are ungrateful. After thinking for a moment, the king ends up accepting it, and Virion informs his son that he himself will train Arthur, therefore warns that he must make the whole country aware of it. Furthermore, he thinks about assuming all responsibility for him. Shortly after, we see the king apologizing to Arthur, saying that maybe he has been on the throne for so long that he became headstrong and old-fashioned. Arthur saved his daughter, and now he is the first disciple of his father. They apologize to him and welcome him to the kingdom. Meanwhile, Arthur wonders what made him change his attitude so suddenly. But upon seeing Tessia and Virion, he understands that the king is unable to say no to his father and his daughter. However, while they shake hands, Tessia interrupts them. She informs her father that if he truly cares about all this, he has to let Arthur out to play, because she wants to show him everything and more of the kingdom. She is excited and takes poor Arthur to show him the kingdom. He is surprised to see the place, while Tessia is extremely excited, wishing to show him the whole city. However, on the way, they encounter a young elf who tells Arthur to not touch her so as not to contaminate her with his human germs. What a jerk. He says that even if Elder Virion likes him, that does not mean he belongs there. Then the rest of the young elves support him, calling Arthur an ape, but Tessia tells Arthur to simply ignore them. The other elf tells Tessia that she should not associate with that person and asks to be himself her escort, but Arthur begins to get annoyed and calls him a dirty elf. The little elf wonders what on earth he is saying, but Arthur only keeps provoking him, calling him water tank head, squinty eyes, rat ears, several things, and right after saying all that, tells him to accept the apologies of a humble insect like him. After that, they even try to leave, but the little elf says that he will not accept this. He cannot allow anyone to stain the name of his family, and with his pride at stake, challenges him to a duel. At that moment, Tessia asks what he thinks he is doing, challenging a disciple of Elder Virion, since even if he is a noble, he should know his place. But that miserable little elf responds that his father taught him to not allow anyone to tarnish his pride, and turning to Arthur asks him if he will accept the duel or not, or if he plans to flee and dishonor his master. Arthur wonders if a duel would not be something serious in that country, but seeing that all the adults are observing, he ends up accepting, while Tessia assumes the role of judge. As the battlefield is prepared, we see how all the adults are a large group of spectators. Tessia then begins the fight. The elf attacks Arthur, who with a punch sends him flying far away. Surprised, he wonders if he hit him too hard. Tessia takes his hand and flees. While they run, Arthur thinks that he is becoming more and more attached to the princess. Thus, they spend the day pleasantly, exploring the whole city. In the shops where he was rejected for being human, Tessia intervened. Although at the end of the day, he sees her quite thoughtful and asks her if something concerns her. He responds that it is nothing serious, while he thinks that Virion had made him understand that his training would be very arduous, since the training of a beast tamer is comparable to plunging into boiling pitch. Arthur decided to remain in a strange land without the support of his family, so even surviving day to day will require a great effort. If he manages to endure it, he will obtain great results. Therefore, Virion asks him once more if he is sure. He is sure, and Arthur leaves it clear that he is determined. Then he tells Tessia that he is very excited to begin his training, since it will be he who decides his own future. Tessia responds that she also intends to work very hard to not lose against him, and the next day, Arthur begins his training. In the process, he thinks that since he arrived in this world, time has passed very fast. The path has been full of difficulties, and what awaits him is even more difficult. Currently, he is very focused on moving forward and dedicating himself to his training, since it will be he who takes the reins of his own destiny. We have a jump in time of 3 years into the future, where now Tessia is already older. As usual, she continues bothering Arthur to wake up, and at that moment, Arthur realizes that Virion is about to leave for a meeting. The king and the queen are also present, although suddenly he is interrupted by Tessia, who offers him a sandwich, letting him know that he should be grateful that a beautiful and kind young woman like her has prepared this for him. But while he eats, he asks where the cute girl is, and later, while they train, Virion observes and thinks that now is the time to advance to the second phase, but before that, it is necessary to review the basics. First, it is necessary to stabilize mana, the base of magic, where one of the following elements can be obtained: fire, water, wind, or earth, in addition to the elements that can be learned depending on the race. For example, elves have better affinity with wind magic, while other races may have better affinities with water and earth, or with earth and fire, like dwarves for example. But humans can manipulate the 4 elements. Each element has its affinity, and a person can have only one. But there are rare cases in which someone can have affinity with multiple elements. At that moment, Tessia asks her grandfather why Arthur was not practicing magic with her. Virion informs that it is because he is still weak, because the beast will inside him is still ruining the balance between his body and his mana core, since that is a very powerful beast, and the first thing to do is to assimilate the mana into his body. At that same moment, Arthur remembers the instant in which Tessia awakened her mana. Elves who awaken their mana before 10 years old have great potential, and Tessia awakened it at 9. Since then, she began to train by his side, where she always gives him a lesson. Although at that point, Virion informs Arthur that now is the time for him to to awaken the beast will inside his body, and if he achieves it, he will no longer feel pain and will become a true beast tamer. Virion begins the procedure using a little of his magic to awaken the beast will, warning that it will be nothing serious. But right after doing this, Arthur begins to feel an unbearable pain, and at the same time releases a large amount of energy that throws Virion and Tessia very far away. Virion remains surprised while Arthur faints, and shortly after, upon gathering in the palace, Virion asks if by chance he is familiar with the beast will. Arthur hesitates a bit before responding, but ends up confessing that it is that of a dragon. Virion cannot believe it, although he warns him that he cannot reveal this to anyone else, since the will of a dragon can attract unwanted conflicts. Arthur thanks him, while Virion informs him that his journey back home is scheduled for the next 4 months. He is surprised because he thought that 2 years still remain, but Virion explains that there will be a ritual exchange between young people of the three kingdoms, and during that period the entrance to the city of Xyrus will be open. He will take advantage of that moment so that he returns home, and Arthur feels a little sad and happy at the same time, because he will have to separate from them, but he will be able to return to his family. But Virion gives him some pats on the head and tells him to rest, since the next day he will begin to train him even more rigorously. Meanwhile, Tessia is quite sad upon learning the news. In a change of scene during the night, the egg that Sylvia had given to Arthur hatches, and he enters into panic. But from the egg appears an adorable little dragon, and upon observing more closely, he understands that it is a baby dragon, which looks extremely adorable. This dragon does not hesitate to bite him, and a mark quickly appears on Arthur, since thanks to this, that dragon now can communicate with him telepathically. The dragon says some things that cannot be understood. The only person who can understand is Arthur himself. He asks the dragon to call him father, while he names her Sylvie, in honor of Sylvia. Instead of being equal, he added an E at the end, and it became Sylvie. Congratulations to Arthur for that. Then he observes the mark and thinks that that symbol must mean something, but he is very sleepy, so he decides to sleep. The next day, as always, Tessia goes to wake him up, but is astonished to see the little dragon lying on his bed. She lifts her up, although poor Sylvie wants to resist shortly after. While heading to training, Tessia asks him to go with her, although little Sylvie refuses, and when he meets with Virion, he is surprised to see that Arthur has a little dragon on his head. He gets scared, but understands that it was born after the assimilation of the beast will. Arthur now finds himself worried, but Virion informs him that nobody will believe that it is a dragon. He simply should say that it is a strange mana beast. Now, passing to the serious matter, given that he is a beast tamer, now he can train his beast core as well as his mana core. The best way to train this is in a real fight. Thus, Virion quickly performs his beast fusion, choosing a much darker and extremely powerful form, far exceeding all expectations of Arthur, who is unable to keep the pace and ends up surrendering. Virion returns to his normal form, commenting that his beast is the Shadow Panther, which manipulates wind instinctively as well as sound, this being advanced magic. Although his transformation is quite strong, it consumes a lot of energy. Next, he hands him a sword and warns him that now truly is the time to train, since before he was only provoking him, so a few days passed, during which he reached a level of mastery with the beast will, and the pain in his chest never returned. Now he is capable of keeping the pace of Virion movements, despite the fact that he is transformed. He spent days and days training, and in his moments of rest behaved like a normal child, until one day, while they were on the street, they encountered the boy from before, that miserable elf who begins to bother him again. But Arthur pretends that he does not even know him. This provokes his anger, and he challenges him to a duel once again. He wants to be defeated again, and that really happens. He ends up losing again. Tessia tries to remember what his name was, and Arthur keeps calling him Rat Ears and Water Tank Head. He does not care at all. Then, one of the type friends warns that Arthur can call him Fei-Fei, because that is how his friends call him. Arthur asks them if they will participate in the cultural exchange between the young people of the three kingdoms. They inform him that most of the young people of high status will attend, and Tessia will also be able to participate. Although in that Fei-Fei mentions that he cannot allow his fragile princess to get lost again. The word fragile provokes Tessia anger, and she pushes him with a blow. After that, Arthur takes her away running, warning that a princess cannot lower herself before a subject. She is a princess and must behave as such. However, she is quite upset because she feels that he will return home and will not be able to participate in the tournament with the others. She feels frustrated, thinking that she will be left without her best friend. Then, in a fit of rage, she screams at him, flees and cries. Meanwhile, Sylvie mentions that he should go after her, and at night sneaks into her room. He looks at her window and invites that they go together to the forest. After some time walking, we see that Tessia is very sleepy, although she is making an effort to not fall asleep. In that precise moment, she asks how the human kingdom is, and Arthur informs her that in truth he does not know, mentions that he would appreciate if he could stay there forever. Although upon trying to respond, he notices that she has fallen asleep. Then the expected day arrives, where Arthur prepares to begin his journey back home. When he is near the portal, Virion hands him a compass so that he does not get lost again. In this compass, there is an emblem of royalty, which will help him a lot if he desires to return there. Then he whispers to him that he should not go out so late at night, referring to the escape he had with Tessia. At that moment, Arthur asks where Tessia is, although her parents do not know either. When the portal opens, he is about to depart, and Tessia runs desperately toward him. Arthur goes toward her, and little Tessia informs him that she will miss him a lot and that she will be very worried about him. Arthur then embraces her, and crying says that he also will miss her. Then the portal opens, and now it is time to say goodbye. Arthur says goodbye to the elves, and now, in the floating city of Xyrus, finds himself in front of his house where his father and his mother are. Upon knocking on the door, his younger sister Eleanor receives him, and then his parents appear. While Arthur informs them that he has returned, his parents cannot believe that their son is back, and while they embrace him with great love, little Eleanor asks her parents to please not cry. Arthur, upon seeing her, remembers the moment in which his father revealed that he would have a little sister, and Arthur presents himself before her as her older brother. Short time later, already at home, they ask how Arthur feels, since previously he had told them that his body was passing through something strange. Arthur informs them that they do not have to worry about anything, that he is fine, but Eleanor is somewhat jealous of all the attention that Arthur is receiving. His mother asks her to approach, since he is the older brother of whom they had talked so much to her. Arthur tells his sister that he is very happy to be able to see her, and after things calmed down a bit, Arthur updated his parents. Although despite trusting them, he omitted the part of having known Sylvia. That is why he told them that he survived the fall, ended up using a subconscious combination magic, and was very lucky, at least that was what he said. In addition to that, about his journey through the Elven Kingdom, he hates having to be inconvenient with his parents, but it is very risky for him to tell them the whole truth before becoming someone very strong. Reynolds asks who the little one is, and Arthur presents her, says that she is a little mana beast. He takes the opportunity to comment that the creature mother was very sick. That is the reason why he decided to help and take her to raise her. Sylvie quickly takes a liking to Eleanor, while Reynolds asks Arthur at what stage his mana core is, although his wife begins to question him because their son has just arrived, and that is the only thing he can ask. Reynolds really wanted to compare his growth with that of his son. Arthur asks him what he has been doing, and he reveals that currently he is working at the Helstia auction house. In addition to that, he is instructing the security staff, and a few years ago his mana core reached dark orange. Then we discover in ascending order the color of mana. First begins in black, then passes to red, from red to orange, from orange to yellow, from yellow to silver, and lastly from silver to white, this being the most powerful, although each color has 3 stages, such as dark, standard, and light. His father, as an augmenter, possesses great physical strength. However, to ignite his mana core, he needs to make an extraordinary effort. At that moment, Reynolds is surprised to see that his son is in the light red rank, that is, almost surpassing him, and due to this gets excited to take his son to train in the yard. Meanwhile, Eleanor begins to complain because her father said a swear word when he realized that his son had almost surpassed him. For that reason, Reynolds receives his due reprimand, but at that moment the superiors of Reynolds enter the room. He takes the opportunity to introduce Vincent, who is visiting his son house, who is also his superior and a good friend. Arthur presents himself before the whole family, while Vincent is surprised to see that Arthur has good manners and does not look like Reynolds' son. Then he meets Lilia, the daughter of the Helsties, where she remains delighted with little Sylvie. At that moment, Reynolds takes the opportunity to inform Vincent that at that instant, they go to the yard to train. Once they are in the yard, Vincent cannot believe that his son has just arrived, and the father already wants to train with him. So he goes there and scolds poor Reynolds, although what surprised him most was that Arthur awakened at an early age and already reached the light red level, which by itself already is quite an achievement, because even the prodigies of 11 or 12 years who entered the prestigious Xyrus Academy barely reached dark red. Arthur considers that it is not a good idea to keep talking about his secrets, since he did not practice much while he assimilated the will of Sylvia, and if he had done it, he would already be in an even higher position. Then they prepare for combat, beginning to block the attacks of the other with great effectiveness, but Reynolds asks his son to put more effort. Upon seeing that Arthur becomes more intense, he decides to get serious, wrapping his fist with the fire element. Arthur understands that the conjurers of that world have greater affinities with certain elements, so when they see the elements with which they are most in tune, quickly begin to control them. But this is not the case for augmenters, since they have to make a great effort to discover their compatibility. But in his other life, there was something very similar to mana, namely Kai, and unlike the elements, it was necessary to control one own Kai. In his old world, innate incompatibility did not exist, although more effort was required, but good fortune did not fail him. Since he arrived in this place, it has gone well for him, so now is the time to show his results, and Arthur gets serious. All the spectators are surprised. He begins to exchange blows with his father, although Reynolds continues to be superior. But thanks to his control of Ki and to his training with Virion, which was very fruitful, he demonstrates to his father that he is capable of controlling lightning. Reynolds is surprised to see that Arthur can control advanced fire magic, and not only that, but also water magic. All those present remain impacted after the great demonstration of little Arthur. His father runs to embrace him, asking him when he learned to do all that. Arthur reveals that he learned recently, although he still does not know how to control it very well. The wife of Vincent comments then that this child is at another level, and later, while they go to have some drinks to digest how powerful Arthur is, asks asks Reynolds if he is aware of how prodigious his son is and of the promising future that awaits him. Reynolds responds that he does not know very well because not all children awaken their magic core at 3 years old. Vincent recommends that Reynolds enroll his son in the Xyrus Academy, since it is the most famous and prestigious magic academy of the continent. But the wife of Vincent, whose name is Tabitha, informs them that their son has great potential and they are interested in investing in his future, so they will not have to worry about the tuition of the academy. Alice hesitates, since they have already helped them too much, to the point of wanting to also pay for the studies of her son. Vincent responds that there is no reason for concern. In addition, thanks to his work, he knows the director of the academy, and if he speaks with her directly, they will be able to enroll him even at 8 years old. But in that, Arthur interrupts and asks if he can give his opinion. He thanks them for the interest, but a long time has passed since the last time he saw his family, so he would like to spend a little more time with them. Then he moves away from the table, informing them that he is quite tired, so asks permission to retire. Shortly after, Vincent wonders if the recommendation was inappropriate. Arthur, in turn, ends up being followed by Lilia, who tells him to continue on the path he is on. Shortly after, she takes him with the servants of the house, where they are quite upset with Arthur. Shortly after, they reveal that Miss Lilia comes there when she is stressed, and Arthur can notice that she seems much more animated in that place than when she was outside. One of the servants mentions that although they are not mages, Lilia parents above all desire their daughter to awaken her magic core. It is evident that Lilia also desires it, but coming from a couple of non-mages, it is quite complicated that she achieves it. She feels a great pressure on her shoulders, and later, Arthur finds his parents in a room. They tell him that they missed him a lot and that whatever happens, he will always be their beloved son. And that day, they could discover that he will be a first-rate mage. Although the best news was having him back, Arthur tries to speak to them about enrolling in the Xyrus Academy, but Reynolds warns him that they can speak of that at another time. But before leaving, they inform him that Vincent is thinking about his well-being, and Arthur responds that they must not worry. He knows very well that Vincent's family has no second intentions. The next day, Arthur runs excited to meet the twin horns, where Angela does not hesitate to embrace him, and everyone is very happy to see that Arthur is still alive. Jasmine begins to examine his whole body and quickly embraces him, asking him for apologies because she feels guilty for not having been able to protect him. Although a little later, when everyone feels better, the twin horns tell him about their adventures. He thinks that he knows nothing about the continent, much less about the kingdom of Sapan. He feels that it would be a good idea to become an adventurer to learn all kinds of things that would be beneficial to him, but he does not know how to tell his parents since he has barely returned and already wants to become an adventurer, and in this way, he will have to distance himself from them once again. Meanwhile, we see Lilia, who is somewhat thoughtful. Now we see Arthur, who is practicing a magic of temporal type, but gets exhausted and comments that he can only last 2 seconds in that state, but knows that he must master it if he wants to protect his loved ones. At that moment, Sylvie approaches him, and when he tries to embrace her, sees that she is a bit dirty, so goes to bathe her. Sylvie is very happy while she takes the bath, and Arthur thinks that Vincent family has definitely obtained many benefits from the auction house they possess, since they live in a very luxurious way. At that moment, he remembers that the servants spoke about Miss Lilia, and shortly after finishes bathing Sylvie, and now she smells good. At that moment, his mother and the others inform him that now it is his turn. Shortly after, we see him at the barber shop, and the barber is very happy to have him there, so says that he will fix him up. Shortly after, he comes out of there, and the women are surprised to see that he looks quite charming. He asks why they are so committed to making him look good, and they reveal that they want to take him to the Helsty auction house. There are many members of royalty there, so he cannot look disheveled. Shortly after that, they walk through the city so that he can know a bit of the city of Xyrus. While he observes the shops, his mother informs him that it is time to buy some clothes. Shortly after, he goes toward a statue and stays throwing some things at its hand. Some students also throw something at his head, and later he asks who they are. Lilia explains that they are students of the Xyrus Academy, and Arthur feels that they seem to be looking for an argument. Lilia explains that with those uniforms, they are practically members of royalty or something similar. As they advance, Arthur notices something. The women explain to him that that shop is a warehouse of magic cores extracted from mana beasts. They can amplify the power of whoever possesses them, and Arthur finds himself somewhat surprised since among the elves they did not do that. Tabitha mentions that the effects of the cores can vary, and if they have the will of a beast, they can be worth up to 100 gold coins. That money is enough for them to live quietly during 250 years. Tabitha informs Arthur that some will be sold in the next auction, and she will organize everything so that he can see it. But Arthur feels quite comfortable with his beast core, and of course he is, since he has a dragon core, which is the rarest of all. At that moment, Lilia mentions that maybe with one of those cores, she could become a mage, although Tabitha responds that a beast core is not a shortcut to awaken one magic. In addition, it makes no sense to buy something so expensive for a child. With that, Arthur realizes that Lilia is desperate to become a mage, thus they continue with their day. While they have lunch, Arthur thinks that maybe according to the conversation with his mother, she is not pressuring the girl, but her father is affecting her a lot. Shortly after, he looks at her and feels a little embarrassed, but later when he lifts his head to look once more, she has already disappeared, and then he goes after her. They arrive at a weapons shop shop where more accessible magic cores are sold. Arthur explains that he possesses a beast core, and that does not guarantee that one can use magic, but Lilia keeps insisting, saying that he would not understand because he is someone special. Although she tried to persuade her parents to give her a core, they did not allow her to have one, which makes Arthur understand that the reason why she feels this pressure is because she wants to demonstrate to her parents that she can be a mage. During the confrontation with Arthur, she ends up tripping over some Zyrus students. They look at her with anger, and even the owner of the shop tries to intervene. But shortly after, he realizes that they are Zyrus students and says that they can do what they want and that he will go to have a cup of coffee. The young people loom over the girl and wonder how they should amuse themselves, while Arthur hopes it does not come to that. But before he can scream at everyone, Tabitha intervenes. The owner of the shop asks what on earth she thinks she is doing, since they are students of the Zyrus Academy. But Tabitha informs everyone that if they harm the daughter of the Helstia house, they will regret it bitterly. When the students realize that she is a lady of the largest auction house of Zyrus and one of the main contributors of the academy, they back off with the tail between their legs, although not without first commenting that it will be very easy to enter Zyrus by paying the entrance fee. Arthur gets quite irritated, but Lilia stops him. Shortly after, at the house, they inform Vincent that there is no reason for concern and recommend that Arthur enroll in the academy so that things like that do not happen again. Since they have made considerable donations to the academy, an incident like this will not be enough to deprive him of a position. Upon hearing this, Lilia gets upset and asks Vincent if he intends to see Arthur take her place, since she still cannot awaken her magic. The young woman is frustrated and tells her father that she hates him, as well as poor Arthur too. That night, Arthur goes to look for her in her room, but nobody responds. Then one of the servants informs him that she is in the hiding place. Meanwhile, we see that Lilia is very frustrated, remembering that since she was little, she wanted to be a mage to make her parents proud. But despite the passage of time, her magic core has not yet awakened, and most likely never will. Even so, Arthur arrives at her hiding place, informing her that her parents are very worried. After that, he tries to apologize to her, but it is Lilia who apologizes to him, confessing that she feels envious since he appeared out of nowhere with an incredible power, attracting all the attention of her father. She apologizes since she is the one who failed to awaken her magic despite all the time that has passed. She believes that her father and her mother certainly are tired of her. Arthur understands a bit. He can comprehend that cold sensation of sinking into the darkness of one's own regrets. Thus, he looks at her face and tells her that even he can see how hard she is trying. Says that when he separated from his parents, he met a young woman who encouraged him in that same way, and after showing her a bit of magic, comments that her father and her mother also know how much she strives, and that the attention he receives from her father is basically because he is something new. Lilia smiles and mentions that her father wants her to be a mage because he knows that that will make her happy, and for that same reason makes many donations to the Zyrus Academy. Before that, Arthur asks if she is sure that she wants to use magic. In a change of scene, he finds himself gathered in the room with everyone, informs them that Lilia has left home to train and awaken her magic. Vincent is quite irritated and asks how she could do this without consulting him first. Arthur responds that this was Lilia's decision, and that she left because if she spoke with them first, she would hesitate. For that reason, she left a letter, and upon reading it, he realizes that his daughter felt like a burden for not possessing magic, although she swears that she will become a great mage to be able to see them again. Vincent collapses on the floor feeling frustrated because his daughter believes that being a conjurer would lead her to a happy future. But the truth is that his daughter does not need to be a conjurer, because even without magic, she is still his daughter, and all he wants is that she remain by his side. At that moment, Lilia suddenly appears and apologizes to her parents for having lied to them. Vincent wonders what is happening, and Arthur apologizes to him, mentioning that he knows what it is for a father to lose a child, especially considering that he made his loved ones suffer for a similar reason. But he did all this so that Lilia could understand that her parents love her unconditionally, and that she does not need to be a mage to feel proud of herself. Vincent tells Arthur to not worry because he is the only responsible one. He apologizes to Arthur's family since he was insensitive by wanting to send his son to the academy, asks Reynolds and Alice to forgive him, and also apologizes to Lilia, telling her that she does not need to go to the academy if she does not want to, and although she is not a mage, promises that he will make her very happy. Lilia responds that she wants to go despite everything, although she cannot do it now, since she desires to learn to use magic first. She wants to be a mage to be able to make everyone happy, just like Arthur. Their parents then embrace her, saying that they know she will achieve it someday. Meanwhile, Arthur says that he will assume the responsibility of awakening Lilia mana. Shortly after, both Eleanor and Lilia sit in the middle of the room. Arthur teaches them that there is a breathing method that will help awaken their mana, since it intensifies by breathing in a meditative and focused way. The girls try it while Tabitha wonders if they will achieve it, since she had never heard of something like that. While the girls breathe, Eleanor manages to see a light, but it disappears because she stopped breathing as indicated to her. Lilia is unable to see something like that, and Arthur decides to help them a little. After some time, Lilia is able to see small lights, and later in her hiding place celebrates with the servants. Arthur feels satisfied with their great progress, and informs them that they will have to train during 2 or 3 years until the energy stabilizes. They will have to train everyday breathing to be able to awaken their magic. Sometime later, the royal cavalry heads to the Helstia house, while we observe the despicable mage wondering if he will find something that amuses him. After a while, they arrive at the Great Auction, where Arthur is surprised by the size of the place. Once inside, Arthur thinks that surely there must be aristocrats and adventurers enjoying that wonderful celebration. The types of objects in that place seem fascinating. Meanwhile, Reynolds informs the security team that they must keep everything in order. After all, he is the head of security. Shortly after, everyone gathers in the Great Hall, where Vincent welcomes everyone, especially the king and all his family. The public applauds, and Vincent proceeds to begin the 11th anniversary of the Helstia auction, something that brings nostalgia to Arthur, since he vividly remembers his previous life. Later, we see that the security team this time also has the help of the twin horns to protect any object that is in the auction. The first artifact is a sword forged by a renowned artisan. It possesses the capacity to paralyze the opponent. The bidding begins at 50 gold coins, and Arthur considers the object interesting, something he could recreate with his magic. At that moment, he realizes that Sylvie is nowhere to be found and tells his mother that he will go look for her. Meanwhile, we see that due to her being very curious, she ends up encountering the same despicable man from before. Vincent announces another exquisite item, the cub of a world lion, a magical beast that even can reach the rank of a retainer. Curtis informs his father, the king, that he wants it. The auction begins at 100 gold coins. Everyone starts bidding desperately, but the king does not play and immediately offers 1,000 gold coins, and everyone understands that they will not be able to compete with him. On the other hand, Arthur continues looking for Sylvie. Upon hearing her voice, he begins to walk toward her. Meanwhile, the item is delivered to the king. At that moment, we see that Sylvie is very nervous in the presence of the individual. He asks her to approach, although she refuses, and by luck, Arthur appears just in time and quickly realizes that he must be a conjurer at the service of the king, so he must treat him with respect to avoid problems, informing him that she is his companion. The individual regrets it, since he believed it was an item from the auction, mentioning that he possesses a very interesting mana beast. At that moment, Sylvie runs toward Arthur, causing annoyance to the individual. Arthur says that he needs to retire. However, that despicable man tells him that he must leave that creature there, given that for a long time they have been looking for a mana beast worthy of him, and that he is the one who should harvest all the benefits of that potential. For that reason, he threatens Arthur with his instinct, telling him that that mana beast would be better in his hands. After all, he is at the service of the king, which means that it is better for that country. Even a child like him should understand it, but Arthur simply decides to ignore him, turning his back on him, which infuriates him, saying that his family will suffer the consequences of his actions. Arthur, furious, overwhelms him with his aura, asking him to repeat what he said. The windows of the auction hall begin to break, and the king feels a powerful presence. Even Vincent is unable to endure it. The bloodlust is overwhelming, and the royal guard surrounds the king to keep him safe. The conjurer of the king enters into panic, and Arthur, realizing that he is making a mistake, interrupts his bloodlust. The auction stops quickly to look for the responsible one. Arthur apologizes to his parents, and at that moment the king approaches Reynolds, informing him that he needs to speak with him. In another scene, we see him affirming that it is very regrettable that he could not capture the intruder, but demands disciplinary measures. However, at that moment, the conjurer intervenes, telling the king that there were no damages, so a merciful response would be fair by declaring him innocent, says that Arthur possesses an incredible mana beast. He adds that he could take care of her in an ideal environment. The king informs that Sebastian has been the bodyguard of the royal family for many years, and for that reason, he has been thinking for some time how he should reward him, and now he has noticed that he has a great interest in that mana beast, so proposes that the boy deliver that mana beast to his servant, because with it, this incident would not have occurred and everything would be fine. Arthur tries to intervene, but his mother stops him. Reynolds in turn apologizes to the king, but has no intention to intervene in the adoption of his son Mana Beast, since he is not in a position to say what must be done about it. Due to this, the king asks Arthur directly what he thinks about doing. He responds directly that he does not agree with him, and that he will not obtain any replacement for Sylvie. The king then proposes an exchange of the world lion cub he just bought for his Mana Beast, but Arthur once again apologizes to him, but must reject the offer, since he has no intention to yield or sell Sylvie. The king, somewhat upset, asks for the last time if he will not allow him to stay with his companion. Arthur stands up and responds to the question with another question, asks directly what price he would put on the head of his children. The king asked him 3 times, and the 3 times Arthur refused. Even so, due to his pride, the king does not give up and does not accept that answer, and that is why Arthur made that question, what price he would give for his children. Sebastian, indignant, orders his knights to attack him, but Arthur in an instant incapacitates them all. The enraged Sebastian declares that that creature will be his, and for that reason attacks Arthur directly, but Arthur simply stops time, and now the only ones capable of moving are those two. As Arthur approaches, Sebastian enters into panic, and in an instant Arthur breaks his leg, causing Sebastian to beg for help, but Arthur warns him that nobody can hear him, and for that reason he must pay close attention. Sebastian Sebastian responds that neither his family nor Arthur will escape since Arthur humiliated him. But Arthur reminds him that now he finds himself in a very desperate position. Then, frightened, he begs for mercy, and quickly time begins to flow again. Arthur ends up fainting, but upon waking finds himself in a bed, understanding that he needs to train much more. Then his mother enters the room along with Sylvie. Arthur takes the opportunity to ask what happened after he fainted. His mother says that everyone entered into panic and that she tried to heal him, although the doctor said that he would wake up soon, but for her, it felt like an eternity. Shortly after, he goes with his mother to the market where they buy a garment for Eleanor. Arthur is somewhat worried about his family budget because his father could lose his job, but Alice lets him know that he needs to relax. After all, she also works, and we discover that many of his mother products are sold in the city thanks to Tabitha, who has many contacts. Upon returning home, Reynolds tells the king messenger that it is not a matter of money. His son could have died, and when he enters Arthur's room, his father asks him if he is fine. Arthur reassures him, and although the king messenger stands up, offers apologies for what occurred the day before, offers a compensation with gold coins to make up for what happened. Reynolds feels indignant because he believes they are trying to downplay the incident. Arthur understands what is important, since now he must play the role of the humble victim, so he thanks the messenger for the king apologies and informs him that the guards who attacked him were dismissed. But that is not enough for Reynolds, although the messenger reminds him that his son challenged the king and in addition also pointed out the flaw in his security service, and Reynolds shows certain annoyance, but his son asks him to stop since he is aware that things escalated. But now he is fine, and out of curiosity asks the messenger what happened to the conjurer at the service of the king. The messenger informs that he was dismissed from his post, and when he woke up began to tell everyone what had happened to him. The king simply affirmed that it made no sense, although the messenger informs that they reached the conclusion that the mana of the two soldiers reflected on him, and that this altered his spells, and currently the king is dissatisfied with all this fiasco. For that reason, he is offering this as a gesture of reconciliation, comments that he understands that his son has a great talent, but advises him to educate him better. Once that meeting ends, Reynolds hands the bag of gold to his son. After all, it was he who almost died. Arthur gives him thanks, while Reynolds informs him that his attack was spectacular. At night in his room, Arthur understands that he is still a child in that world, and if he desires to oppose the power of a nation, he needs to obtain a power that is equal to it. The next day, he takes a walk through the Xyrus Academy, where he is observed by a mysterious animal. Curious, begins to follow it, and suddenly is presented before the director of the Xyrus Academy. She informs him that she was waiting for him, and Arthur knows very well that this academy is famous for training many students, as well as businessmen, royal guards, leaders, and military officers. This is a place where all children with magic eventually enter. Now, he finds himself before the director of the academy, who possesses great power. She mentions that it is a pleasure to meet him, and that it is time to verify everything that Vincent said about him. So after protecting herself with a barrier, Arthur feels her intense power. But now it is his turn to show his, since he must demonstrate that Vincent did not lie about his abilities, then uses a wind spell to attack her with huge rocks. Although to the director it does not matter, Arthur then uses the earth element, but she repels it very easily with her daggers, what leads him to attack directly with his fire element. But the director tells him to stop, admits that he impressed her a lot with his skills, but tends to overestimate too much his dexterities. The truth is that Vincent told her that he has a great talent for magic and combat, but now is the time for the final test, and asks him to try to remain conscious. Then she begins to use her sound element to try to leave Arthur unconscious, leaving him surprised to see that the director is also a specialized mage. Upon finishing the test, the director informs him that he approved, and that he has a great talent, so much that she feels the desire to teach him personally how to use wind magic. Although she is aware that he is still hiding something, Arthur reveals that he is also capable of using the water element, turning him into a quadra elemental. The director asks what he has to say because she is aware that he did not come there only to show his abilities. Arthur informs her that he is there for her, since she possesses a great authority and influence that he needs, and for that reason desires that she make herself responsible for protecting his family. If she accepts this condition, he will enroll in the Xyrus Academy and will become her disciple. Ends up surprising the director, since not even the rulers of Sapin would dare to make such a strange proposal. But Arthur responds that he is sure that it is worth it, and believes that she thinks the same. But he has no intention to enroll until he reaches the age of his companions. 3 years still remain for that, but he has no intention to waste time, desires to live his life to the maximum, and for that, he will become an adventurer, with the purpose of learning many things about that world, so wants to use these 3 years to increase his experience as an adventurer. The director understands what he wants to say, so informs him that once he speaks with his family and manages to convince them, they will have an agreement. But in a change of scene, we see how Alice opposes completely this idea, does not want her son to become an adventurer, since a short time has passed since he returned, and does not think about allowing her beloved son to put himself in danger again. But Reynolds asks her to calm down. Even so, she asks how he can ask her that, remembers that they suffered a lot when they thought he had died, although he recommends that she first listen to what Arthur has to say. In addition, he was thinking that it would be good for him to have a guardian that protects him while he he was out. Alice keeps insisting, and Arthur intervenes, affirming that he will not go simply to look for adventures, desires to expand his horizons, and can return home every few months so that she can be calm. His mother asks him to promise it, and he does it. In addition, informs her that he does not intend to depart immediately. After all, wants to learn much more about the continent, since there are many things he does not know, and also desires to experience the excitement that they felt when they were adventurers. His mother manages to understand him, but asks him to not keep more secrets, since they did not know that he was a quadra elemental. Arthur informs them that there will be no more secrets, but we know that he has many secrets and will not tell them. Even he would like to be able to tell them, but many things are not easy to explain, so he decides to keep them for himself. At that moment, Reynolds informs Arthur that he will be able to go on adventures, but he will have to have a guardian that protects him in case of emergency. It is then when they gather with the twin horns to decide who will act as guardian. After speaking for a while, Jasmine ends up offering herself as a volunteer to be his new guardian, something that surprises everyone, since she dislikes a lot protection jobs, but she is very excited to do it, since it is about her dear Arthur. Reynolds is satisfied with the idea, since although they had in mind Helen or Durden as guardians, the truth is that Jasmine's combat skills are perfect to take care of his son. Alice asks Jasmine if she is sure that there is no problem, and she says there is none, so now everything is decided. In addition, Jasmine reached the orange light level in the previous year, so she has mastered wind magic, and for that reason is suitable for this role. Now that everything is decided, they say goodbye to the twin horns, and the group notices that Lilia is meditating. Helen begins to scold her because she is training without her, while Arthur rejoices to see that Lilia now is capable of meditating by herself, and although his sister is meditating too, hopes she does not awaken her mana at an early age, since he does not want her to draw attention. Shortly after that, he asks his parents if he can go to the auction house because he needs a sword. Now we see that he is with Vincent, and in the warehouse of the auction house, Vincent gives him complete freedom to look for a sword that pleases him. Meanwhile, Alice is worried about him because he is taking a lot of time to choose a sword, but Reynolds tells her to maintain calm. She calms down a bit, and we observe that Arthur is having difficulties, since despite there being many swords, none of them draws his attention. The detail is that most of the swords are two-handed or great swords, nothing that adapts to someone of his size. After all, most of the soldiers in that world are augmenters. It is at that moment that Sylvie draws his attention and takes him to where a small staff is located. When he picks up the staff, he is surprised because it is quite heavy. What seems very curious, since the center of gravity is too unbalanced to be a staff, it feels more like a sword, and due to that, he tries to unsheath it using his spiritual energy. Although at that moment we see that the emblem of Sylvie begins to react, and Arthur observes a strange inscription and manages to unsheath the sword, remaining surprised of how magnificent this weapon is. But it is still very heavy for him, although even so he puts it to the test, causing damages to the private property of the man. At that moment, he notices an engraving on the blade of the sword, and that reaction caused sparks, making it fall. Although when he picks it up again, he realizes quickly that its balance has changed. Not only that, both the length of the hilt and the blade are now perfectly adjusted to his body. In his past life, he had many excellent swords, but never one that adapted so well to him, so he wonders who the forger of that sword is. Although suddenly his father and Vincent come to look for him, informing him that it is already time for dinner. Arthur picks up quickly another sword and says that he desires to take it, although he still carries the mysterious sword on his waist. Reynolds gives his approval and says that this sword is good for him, but Vincent, who is not foolish, asks what that staff is that he has on his waist. Arthur invents that he found it on the floor and simply picked it up, and Vincent asks the manager if by chance they have records of it. The manager informs him that a strange old man delivered it and then left. They made many appraisers take a look at that staff, but everyone said it was just a sturdy staff, and since they felt bad about throwing it in the trash, simply kept it there. But he asks Vincent if he should take it to an appraiser of higher level. What worries Arthur, who then looks at Vincent with pleading eyes, saying that he also is convinced by that staff, and that he was thinking about using it. By calling him Uncle Vincent ends up convincing him. After that time passed, Arthur took the opportunity to spend time with his loved ones, and at the same time prepared gradually to become an adventurer. Then 9 years passed since he arrived in this world. They celebrate with great style, and when night arrives, it is time to open the gifts. The first is from his mother, which are gloves. She comments that these gloves have 3 large gems imbued with healing spells. The other gift is from Vincent, who asks him to marry her, although Tabitha asks him to stop joking and to take it a bit more seriously, warns that she has a gift for him, and another for his mother, because while his mana level reaches the limit, the gem in his mother ring will light up, warning that her son will be in danger. Then it is the turn of the twin horns, and they give him a scroll that transmits sounds. With this, he will be able to leave a message channeling his mana into the scroll, and thus his mother will be able to receive it and respond once. Arthur thanks everyone for having given him the gifts, so that the next day he will depart, and for that reason informs everyone that he will do everything possible so that they do not worry. Shortly after, while Arthur prepares for the journey, he thinks that now in that world he has a family and companions that he appreciates. He does not desire to lose the peace he achieved in this world. Therefore, he must strengthen himself and obtain even more power to protect the people he loves. Just before leaving, his father asks him to not become conceited and to not try to resolve everything alone, hopes that he always looks for the support of Jasmine, and his parents inform him that they will always support him. Upon leaving the house, he tells Jasmine that it is time to begin their adventure. After continuing their journey, the young people arrive at the Adventurers Guild of Xyrus, where Jasmine asks the receptionist to allow her companion to take the rank evaluation exam. Shortly after, right after registering, the receptionist takes them to the facilities of the guild. Arthur thinks that he is hiding his identity so that they cannot identify him and he can pass unnoticed before royalty. At that moment, the leader of the guild presents himself as Caspian, the master of the Adventurers Guild of Xyrus, explains that normally one must first take the written exam and then evaluate the mana core to be able to perform the classification exam. But because it is a request from Jasmine, he decided to make an exception, whispers in his ear that the other day he saw his father calling Miss Flamesworth. Then Caspian takes Arthur's hand, where he realizes that this individual is quite strong. Caspian informs him that he does not necessarily need to register under his real name, and Arthur feels relieved by the news and presents himself as Note. As soon as he heads toward a training field, Arthur asks Jasmine if she is close to the leader of the guild. She responds that in a certain way yes, since her parents have strong connections with the guild. At that moment, the creature comes out of the bag, and Jasmine mentions that she looks different from the last time. Arthur responds that his companion seems to have the ability to change shape. Shortly after, they arrive at the evaluation area, where Arthur observes the young adventurers taking their exam. The young people demonstrate great skills, but also show some flaws, for which the boy receives a classification C, a very good rank for that age. And then they announce that they will perform the test of someone called Helstia, but then they stop her, and without needing to perform an evaluation, inform that she is an adventurer of rank B, without even taking the exam. And this leaves some adventurers surprised and indignant. The third to take the exam is Lucas Wykes. He questions the examiners about why they did not exempt him from the exam, since he wants them to simply give him a high classification. He is an 11-year-old mage and already possesses a light orange mana core, specializes in fire, and Arthur observes that he is an elf. Upon beginning the exam, Lucas begins his attack, and the examiner neutralizes him in an instant, but Lucas proceeds conjuring a huge rain of fire. Arthur wonders if he will be able to control it, but we realize that he loses control. Then, the examiner needs to correct him. After controlling the situation, she congratulates Lucas for possessing a great potential of mana, but he still lacks practice, despite the fact that this unhappy one tries to attack her by treachery. At that moment, a sword interrupts his attack, and the sword belongs to Arthur himself. Lucas announces that this exam is not valid, since there was interference from a third party. But one of the examiners informs that the exam had already finished and likewise used a surprise attack, which is quite dishonorable. As punishment, they assign him rank D and then remove him from the duel arena. Next, it is the turn of Note, or of Arthur, I will call him Note, to enter into the atmosphere. While he heads toward the combat arena, Jasmine is surprised to see his great potential, and the examiner mentions that he has no type of information about him. Although upon seeing the aura that Note is emanating, he feels terror. At that moment, the leader of the guild appears and says that he will be the one who performs the exam, but his colleague responds that he is a mage of rank A, and that at least he should not be the one who evaluates the candidates directly. But Caspian responds that in fact he does it because he has close ties with the evaluator, asks him if Note has any problem with that, but he responds no. Then, he fully understands that it will be a very difficult battle, but he gets enthusiastic, and upon beginning the combat, they face each other. As this anime cut the fight and did not show the details, Note ended up obtaining rank B, becoming officially an adventurer. Meanwhile, in the offices of Caspian, the examiners cannot believe that on that day so many adventurers were promoted to rank B, since this had never happened before. They explained in secret that they approved the elves and the dwarves so that they could register in the Adventurers Guild. For his part, Lucas is a half-elf of the Wykes family, which has been raising mages in questionable ways, while on the other hand, the other young woman was exempted from the exam because her backing attests to her skills, and she is someone with whom they cannot get involved, revealing that she is an orphan from the kingdom of Darv, that is, the nation of the dwarves. The examiners ask about the masked one, but Caspian responds that in comparison with Lucas and her, he knows absolutely nothing about him. Of the only thing he is sure is that he does not represent the dwarves. In addition, the fact that someone from the most powerful family of fire mages in his kingdom is his backing makes everything even more interesting. But what makes Note more fearsome is not his fire magic, but rather his swordsmanship. Remembering the fight he had against him, Note offered a great battle, despite fighting as if he had not yet adapted to his body, so that when he grows up, he will be able to become someone truly terrifying. Meanwhile, Arthur thinks that after his fight with Caspian, he feels that he has gotten too used to this world, and due to that, he let himself be carried away by the skills he obtained there, and neglected a bit his swordsmanship. As they advance, they stumble upon a companion, who mentions that what he did in the arena was quite reckless, but that if he had not done it, she herself would have done it. At that moment, Lucas was only looking, wondering if that would be a meeting of adventurers of rank B, since he also has rank B. They tell him to not bother, commenting that they will not invite him to their club since the club does not usually break the rules. Lucas ends up getting irritated and attacks him, although upon noticing that they are drawing too much attention, decides to follow his path in peace, just like the group from there that teleports to a pasturing area of beasts. There, the adventurers of lesser rank begin to train, in addition to collecting some materials necessary for the missions. Shortly after they begin to move toward their destination, where Arthur notices that Jasmine possesses a great speed. As they advance, he remembers his fight against Caspian. There were great explosions, and suddenly a huge cursed boar appears in the place, which begins to devour the novice adventurers. Jasmine warns him that it is time to flee from that place, because that monster does not belong to that area, what worries her a little. Although as they advance, they realize that the monster had been caged, but ended up escaping. The boar, upon seeing them, lunges against them. Although they manage to dodge it, Jasmine attacks the monster and asks Arthur to run, but at one moment she loses balance, and Arthur acts quickly and takes her in his arms. The boar notices the presence of more adventurers and prepares to attack them. Jasmine jumps to defend them, and Arthur tries to do the same, but is retained by his inner voice, which warns him that he still can control it, making Arthur feel that he must not commit the same mistake he committed in the fight against Caspian. When the boar lunges against the adventurers, Arthur attacks it with a fire thrust accompanied by continuous cuts, managing to defeat the boar with that attack. Shortly after, Jasmine pinches his cheek, confessing that she would have preferred that he had gotten scared when they were fighting against that thing. That is, she would have preferred that he had acted like a normal child. It is not as if she were trying to interfere in his personal affairs, and Arthur cannot understand her. At nightfall, she tells him that she became an adventurer to distance herself from her family, since the Flamesworth family had produced great mages for generations, and they always taught her that the fire element was her strength. In that time, she felt proud of her family, and since she awakened magic before her brothers, her parents had great hopes for her. Perhaps because of that, when they discovered that she could not use fire magic, they began to despise her and call her useless. Arthur tells her to stop, saying that that is not correct, because although mana cores have levels, there is no level for the elements, and everything depends on how they are used. Jasmine laughs and apologizes, because he is always very serious and she never imagined that something like that would bother him. But Arthur got irritated because he remembered his past life when he himself was considered useless. At that moment, Jasmine says that when she met the Twin Horns once, she fought in the same way he did that day, and the Twin Horns reprimanded her because at that moment she did not know how to fight in a team, although thanks to them, she changed a lot. This makes Arthur wonder if at some point he will be able to change too. After remembering all his experiences, he feels that he must become stronger to protect them. At that moment, we see Tessia spying on him. She is quite irritated because every time she sees Arthur, he is always with a different woman. Poor boy. Then the grandfather of Tessia appears and asks why she is jealous of Arthur, and then proposes to her that she also begin to attend the Xyrus Academy. In a blink of an eye, 2 years pass. During these 2 years, Arthur becomes a renowned swordsman, and everyone knows the name of Note, the masked swordsman. However, 2 years have already passed, and now Arthur observes his new objective.